Hi my little munchkins, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. Did someone tell you that lentils are a cheap source of protein? Then you went out and bought something like this. And now you're wondering, what the hell do I do with that? I'm here today to help you. I'm gonna show you how to make dal and garlic naan, all from scratch. It's cheap, it's simple, and it's delicious. Let's get to the recipe. The first thing you will need is a big bowl, and the second thing you need is some kind of measuring cup. Let me focus. So this is a half a liter measuring cup. So just measure out half a liter of lentils. So yep, and put it into the bowl and use cold water and soak the lentils. You should use cold water because if you use hot water, the lentils are just gonna cook. So we're just soaking this, and we'll soak this for overnight. So see you tomorrow.
The next day.
For the sake of time management, we make the naan bread now. So first you need 5 grams of sugar, followed by 120 grams of warm water. This is about 50 degrees. And 7 grams of dry yeast. The ingredients will be listed in the description. Give that a stir. And now we wait for 10 minutes. Now you can see that the yeast has activated. It's time for us to make the dough. Add about 100 grams of yogurt. I use this Alpro soy yogurt for obvious reasons. Oil. Salt. Stir. And 300 grams of flour, but try to add it in small increments. Try to add it a little bit at a time so you don't get clumps. So I try to stick to 60 grams 5 times. At this point it becomes impossible to stir with a spatula, so we'll just stir with our hands, mix with our hands. first it will look very sticky, but just keep going and it will be a dough. Now that you have a dough, put the dough somewhere and wash out the bowl. Grab the bowl that you clean and put some oil. Any oil will do. Make sure you oil the bowl properly. Then now place it in there. Find somewhere warm in the kitchen where it's out of the place and put a towel over. Now this will rise for 1 hour. The first thing that I do is I heat up a pot. This is a 5-liter pot, and add a generous amount of oil, just enough to cover the bottom. While the oil is heating up, I will cut the vegetables. And 3, 2, 1. Now that the oil is hot, start to fry your onions. And turn the heat down to medium so you don't burn the onions. Make sure you fry this for about 5 to 10 minutes. While that is frying, I'll cut the tomatoes. As the onion is frying, you can add some spices. The first is mustard seed, 1 teaspoon. Cumin powder, 2 heaping teaspoons. Turmeric, don't use too much of this, just the back of the spoon. And finally, black peppers. Now as you fry this, you can notice that it starts to smell quite good. As the onions and the spices are frying, now we can add the garlic. I add about half a garlic. And I save about 4 cloves for the naan. Make sure you fry the onions for at least 10 minutes. So it will be fragrant. And don't put the heat too high, otherwise it will burn. It's okay to put it at low heat because the oil can extract the flavor from the onion. When the onions are softened, just add the tomatoes. And this is how big I add the tomato. I cut them into quarters. You don't have to cut this very small because we're gonna boil this for a long time. If you cut them small, you won't see them anymore later. Now at this stage I will add 1 teaspoon of salt. And turn the heat back up. When tomatoes are still cooking, now we can start to chop potatoes. I have 3. You can chop it however small you want, and you can make this recipe with or without skin. I just leave the skin on. Now give it a stir to coat the potatoes. This is another optional ingredient, is carrots. I add 3. Optional vegetable to add is French beans. Just cut off what you don't like about the French beans and add the rest in. So for me, I cut off the 2 ends and then I cut them into this length. When you got all your veggies, they start to look like that. It's time to add the lentils. Do you remember the lentils from yesterday? As you can see, the water is very murky. Now we're gonna wash this. I wash it a little at a time so that I get to wash most of the chemicals away. If you don't wash this, you will experience a lot of bloating and you will be farting all evening. So I highly recommend that you wash the lentils thoroughly. After you've washed it, just add it to the pot and repeat. Now that I've washed all my lentils, I turn the heat up to almost max, and to the pot I add 1 liter of water. And stir. Now I will let this boil. It will take a few minutes. As we are waiting for things to boil up, we can make a naan spread. This is what we're going to spread on the naan when we are frying it. So remember the 4 cloves of garlic? I crushed it and I put it into a bowl. To that you add 2 teaspoons of coriander powder. No, coriander leaves, sorry. 2 teaspoons of coriander leaves. Teaspoon of salt, tablespoons of oil. Now this is what we're going to use to make the garlic naan. Just stir it until it's even and leave it on the bench to extract the flavors. Once you see that it is boiling, give it a stir. Make sure nothing is stuck at the bottom. Lower the heat to about 40% and cover. Now we will stir this every 10 minutes. Now it's about 10 minutes. Let's check on the lentils. Make sure you stir gently to make sure nothing is stuck at the bottom. Repeat this until it's about 45 minutes. Technically speaking, we're at 20-minute mark. This is when the potatoes are probably done. But if you want it to be tastier, you gotta leave it until about 45 minutes. Now it has been 1 hour since I covered the dough. So let's see what it looks like now. So that's just been about double the size. Now the dough is ready to work with. The first thing I would like to do is add some flour to the counter. A bit more. Then I take my dough and I put it on top. Then I put a bit more flour and I press on it. Now what I will do now is split it. Using a pastry cutter, first cut it in half, then half across this way, and half again. So this will make 8 doughs. Now set the doughs aside. I like to dust it a little bit with some flour. If it looks like it's a bit too big, just cut off some of it. This is what the dough looks like. Now I grab a non-stick frying pan and I heat it up to about 70-80%. So 7. Let that heat up and then we add some oil. So the first thing I do is grab a dough, add a bit of flour, flatten it out, and then we roll it. Ideally, it should be rolled to about 2 millimeters thick. Check on the oil. As you can see, we have some oil heating up there. Let's wait until it's hot. How do you know that the oil is hot? Grab a bit of flour, And you see it's sizzling. Now the pan is hot enough. Remember the dough? We flattened it out already. Now grab some kind of brush. And then just spread the garlic and coriander onto the naan. Just peel it off the counter. I peeled it off the counter and put it face down into the oil. Try to turn off the light so you can see better now. Starting to bubble. When it's bubbling, add some of the topping, the garlic coriander toppings. And flip it. Now let it fry for a few minutes. The first one was probably not a good example. This one is a much better example. As you can see, it's a lot of bubbles. This one looks a bit more interesting. Once your lentils have been simmering for 45 minutes, just remove the lid. Remove the lid and give it a stir. Now we will be simmering this without the lid, so it will thicken to our desired texture. By the meantime, we can continue making the naan. Now it has been 1 hour and our dal is the perfect texture. We will try to taste for flavor and add salt accordingly. I would say at least 1.5 teaspoon more of salt. Maybe half teaspoon more. So this is the result, the naan and the lentils. So now we try, I show you how to eat it. First you grab a bit of naan. Then you put some of the dal. It's really good. You should try this. Now that I show you how to make the dal, do you think it's easy or hard? I hope you will try to make this at home. And anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. See you next time. Bye!